Tonight we have new information on a story we first told you about last week. An RV park and campground unexpectedly shutting down, leaving multiple families without a place to call home.
Somebody needs to be held accountable for this, you know. We have to just up and pack up and just leave, like, you know. It doesn't work that way for me. It's, you know, like your home. How do you just pack up and go?
When we looked in the story last week, the manager told us he takes responsibility for the campground shutting down. KHQ's Patrick Erickson started to investigate when we learned there may be more to this story. Patrick?
Stephanie, good evening. It's usually the busiest time of year, but as you can see here, the West Medical Lake Resort tonight, it's closed. The state says it's because of a lease issue. Folks out here tell me they believe it's for a completely different reason.
It was a nice place. Nice and quiet, mom and pop place.
The 4th of July is supposed to be a time to get away and spend time with family. But for the parents of 2 teenagers, the holiday turned into a nightmare.
How could this happen, you know? How could I take my daughter somewhere and her be in danger like that?
While camping at this small RV park outside of Medical Lake, Michael Webley says his 15-year-old daughter was spending time at the resort's boathouse, learning about the business from the manager, John Sandoval.
There was a lot of contact between my 15-year-old daughter and the owner.
Do you think anything weird at that point?
I didn't at first because we were there. And so it would just seem like he was wanting to be helpful, teach her how to fillet fish, things like that.
He says there were no red flags. That is until a few days after they had left, when his daughter described feeling uncomfortable with the way Sandoval had touched her. Michael then Googled the name John Sandoval and was shocked at what he saw next. The man his daughter had been spending time with was a level 3 sex offender who had spent a dozen years in prison for molesting and raping a 6- and 7-year-old girl. Michael was then forced to have the most difficult conversation he says he's ever had as a father.
When I talked to my daughter, my heart sunk to the floor because I was afraid I was going to hear more that I didn't know about. And I thank God I didn't, you know, thank God she said, "No, Dad, nothing like that happened."
Then out of the blue a few days later,
I received a message from somebody that was staying at that resort that her daughter was involved as well.
That message was from Melissa Cousins, who had also been staying at the RV park, her daughter describing a similar disturbing experience with Sandoval.
I was terrified and I kept thinking he was grooming my daughter, and if I didn't do something or find out sooner, how far would it have gone, and would my baby have been raped?
Each family reported what happened to the sheriff's office, who looked into it, but told them that no crime had been committed and Sandoval was not breaking any laws. Their next question, how could someone like this be allowed to lease an RV park and resort filled with children? After researching it, we learned with no restrictions from the judge after his release, Sandoval began leasing the resort from the Department of Natural Resources in 2016. Running it for the last year and a half.
How many children have come in contact with these people, with this person? You know, how many children have been put at risk?
Do you think the state put children in danger?
Yes.
Until a couple of weeks ago, when they terminated the lease after Sandoval failed to make a payment. Did this have anything to do with Mr. Sandoval being a level 3 registered sex offender?
No.
With their Facebook page suddenly taken down and the resort no longer showing up on Google Maps, Melissa doesn't believe that answer.
As soon as they found out he was a sex offender, all of a sudden he didn't renew his lease in time. I think it's too much of a coincidence, and I think it's a cover-up.
Sandoval has now moved out of the RV park, leaving Michael concerned what could happen next.
That's what worries me the most. The guy doesn't go to jail for this because no crime was committed. The resort gets shut down, he goes somewhere else. Who else's kids are in danger?
And there are folks still living here in the resort. DNR is actually working with them to get them a place to stay. They have until the end of the month to be out here. As for the resort itself, at this point, the state says they have no timetable for when it should reopen or could reopen. And as for who's going to run it, they said they don't know at this point either. Reporting live in Medical Lake tonight, Patrick Erickson, KHQ Local News.
All right, Patrick, thank you.